Work some more long division problems just to give us some extra practice. So this area here in this video is just going to be extra practice of our long division. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set it up. So I'm going to put my long division bar. I'm dividing x squared plus 3x plus 5, dividing it by x plus 1. And what I want to do is to start this off, I want to make sure it's in standard form. If there's any missing terms, I put in a 0. I'm only going to be comparing these front two pieces. So I'm going to say, okay, x times what would give me x squared, and that's an x. So I'm going to place it above the 3x. Then I'm going to multiply my red x by everything out front. So x times x would give me an x squared. X times 1 would give me a positive 1x. And I'm going to subtract this whole thing. Make sure when you're subtracting, you change all the signs. So this would cancel. And this gives me 2x. Bring down the next piece of positive 5. Then you go back into comparison mode again. And you say x times what would give you 2x. That's a positive 2. Then you multiply. 2 times the x out front gives me a 2x. 2 times 1 gives me positive 2, and I want to subtract this whole thing. So I'm going to change all the signs. This would cancel. It always should cancel. That's why we're picking that to cancel. Leaving me with a 3. And so what is my result? My result is x plus 2 plus 3 over what we were dividing by. This is my final answer. Now that one wasn't too bad because it was just a quadratic divided by a linear function. Let's look at the next one and see what it has for us. So in this next problem, it says 6x squared minus x cubed minus 15x plus 10 all over x minus 5. So when I go to set up my division bar, the first thing I need to be aware of is I need to put all of this in descending order. It needs to be in that standard form of largest exponents. So that would be negative x cubed plus 6x squared minus 15x plus 10. X minus 5 goes out front. And then we go back into the comparing game. We say x times what would give me that negative x cubed, and that's a negative x squared. And I always place it above the term with the same degree. And then I multiply, and I'm going to take this negative x squared times everything out front. So it gives me negative x cubed plus 5x squared. These should always be the same before you subtract. That's the goal when you're creating this piece here. And then you're going to subtract this whole thing. But remember, you have to change all the signs. So this would cancel, and this gives me a 1x squared. Bring down the next term, minus 15x. And then compare again. Say, okay, x times what would give me x squared? And that's a positive x. And then multiply. So it gives me x squared minus 5x. I'm going to subtract this whole thing. So I'm going to change all the signs. So that gives me negative 10x. Bring down the positive 10. Compare again. X times what would give you negative 10x? It's a negative 10. So I have negative 10x as I multiply plus 50. I want to subtract this whole thing. So I change all the signs. And that gives me negative 40. So what is my result? That would mean minus 40 over x minus 5. And this would be my result of dividing out these pieces. So I wanted to work this one specifically because you had to put it in descending order to start. Let's look at the next one. It's going to cue us on to something else we might encounter. This one says, let's divide this whole piece. So let's just go with our setup. So I'm going to set up our fraction bar. I'm going to put it in descending order. I have 2x to the 4th plus x cubed. I don't have an x squared, and so right here, I'm going to have to put in that 0x squared. And what it's going to do is it's going to act as a placeholder, and also where we're trying to go with this whole situation, it's also going to assist us. Then I'm going to put this piece out front. So when I'm working through this, I do have more pieces at play, but I'm still only comparing this front term and this front term. And I'm going to say x squared times what would give me 2x to the 4th. Again, if you need to do a little scratch work over here to the side, we can come over here and that reduces to 2x squared. So I'm going to place it right here over that other x squared. And that just helps me to keep in orderly, organized placeholders. Now I'm going to multiply. And again, if you need to say 2x squared times everything out front, no shame in doing some little scratch work over here to the side. I'm distributing this out. That gives me 2x to the 4th plus 6x cubed minus 4x squared. And that's what I'm going to place over here. 2x to the 4th plus 6x cubed. Just lining up all my similar exponents. Minus 4x squared. Now I'm going to subtract this whole thing. Make sure you're subtracting the whole thing. So change all those signs. This would cancel. And that gives me negative 5x cubed plus 4x squared. And then bring down that next term of negative 7x. Again, it's a lot of pieces. Just go slow, be detail oriented. We're comparing these front two terms. So that would give me a negative 5x for my next piece. I'm going to multiply that. That gives me negative 5x cubed minus 15x squared plus 10x. And I'm going to subtract this whole thing. So again, change all your signs. This would cancel. And I'm left with 19x squared minus 17x. Compare again. This will be our last piece because you can see I only have one more spot to fill up here. And so then that would be a plus 19. I'm going to multiply. That gives me 19. Didn't bring down that 4. 19x squared. Let's see. 19 times 3. That would give me a positive 57x. And then 19 times negative 2 would give me a negative 38. I'm going to subtract this whole thing. Change all the signs. So this would cancel. And I have negative 74x plus 42. If you're not changing all those signs as you go, after your first step, everything else is going to domino out of control. So my result would be 2x squared minus 5x plus 19 plus negative 74x plus 42 all over x squared plus 3x minus 2. You have to be very detail oriented. Now this next situation, it looks very simple, but we need to make sure that we put all the right pieces into play here. And so I'm going to go ahead and set up my long division here, put my x minus 1 out front. Now this one has an x cubed, but it doesn't have an x squared, and it doesn't have an x minus 1. Now we are playing with ones and zeros, but we need to fully work this out. So again, we're going to start with our comparing. X times what would give me x cubed? That's an x squared. Multiply by everything out front. That gives me an x cubed minus x squared. I'm going to subtract this whole thing. So I'm going to change all the signs. And that gives me x squared. Bring down the next term. Compare again. So I'm looking at this x squared and my x out front. X times what would give me x squared? That's a positive x. And then multiply. That gives you x squared minus 1x. Our goal is to create the same right here, because then when I go to subtract this whole thing, change all the signs, that piece will cancel. That leaves me with 1x, and then I bring down that next term of minus 1. Last time, compare it. I knew it was the last time because I need a space right here of something. So that means I'm going to do a plus 1 here. 1 times x gives me x minus 1. Make sure you subtract that whole thing. Change all your signs. That gives you a remainder of 0. So it's okay to get remainder of zeros. It's okay to get remainders of negative 74x. Just follow your steps, follow your process, and when you're working this in the homework, go ahead and input your answer and see if it's right. Don't be scared if you get really large numbers or ones or zeros.